It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, where we connect you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today I am joined by an outstanding individual, incredible leader, business entrepreneur, and a very good friend of mine, Mr. Michael Sloan. Now, before we hear from Michael, let me share with you a little more about him. Michael is a self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur with over 20 years experience building and managing many companies through various economic cycles. Over the last 10 years, Michael grew an investment management business from $15 million to over $10 billion in asset under management. Most recently, Michael launched a new frozen dessert business called Chloe's Soft Serve Fruit Company, of which he is the founder and CEO, and in a very short time has grown Chloe's Fruit into a national brand. It is my distinct honor to welcome Michael Sloan to the Thrive Loud podcast. Michael, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Lou. I really appreciate the kind words.
You know, I didn't even make them up, which is even more important. I just made it, it's actually all true, which makes it even more amazing. Before we dig into this conversation, I'm going to share my personal connection to Michael, to our listeners here. So Michael and I both graduated from Cornell University. We never attended school at the same time, as I'm just a little bit older. Now, the year after I graduated, I came back to visit school, to visit friends of mine who were at the time seniors. And hanging out amongst them was this 18-year-old, very confident freshman. And I would say that hanging out with upperclassmen back there was rare. And I was like, who is this guy? Now, while I'll never say we were mature back then, Michael was more mature than his actual years suggested. And I'd say for over the last 20 years, Michael has continued to maintain that strong connection. He is a master connector in his own right, with those friends from college and all those people we've met that have spread to living in New York City, around the country, in fact, some people around the world. And he really represents all the exciting things that we want to have on this show. So I'm excited to have you on Thrive Loud today and have our listeners hear from Michael. And I have earmarked Mr. Sloan when I came up with the idea for this show because he truly embodies what thriving is all about and doing it every day. So Michael, I'm going to get to this right off the bat here. And see, I didn't go too details. I didn't embarrass us too much for all the stuff that I've known about you over the years. I kept it kind of light.
I actually didn't even know that story. That's so funny. It's really interesting.
So why don't you walk us through your journey on how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I mean, it all goes back to college. So at Cornell, I instead of getting a traditional job, I started a magazine for college students by college students. Mm-hmm. So I would sell advertising and give it away free. This was before the days of Facebook, and it was actually called the Greek Directory. So every fraternity and sorority would give us their names and phone numbers on a disc. We'd print out a magazine and sell advertising. And we'd trade ads for kegs of beer and bicycles, and it was the good old days.
Yeah, the transition from there, was that right out of school?
So then during the summers, I started doing a magazine in D.C. with my best friend from high school, a guy named Jason Epstein, about how to get around D.C. for college students by college students. And then at that point, we thought we wanted to make a national magazine. So we went to this publishing school we heard about called Radcliffe Publishing School up at Harvard. So we took that class, and they had just added a new section called the Internet to the class. It used to be half books and half magazines. And so we learned about the Internet, and we had this crazy idea for this business in the health world, kind of more like a healthscape or something, that we really had no business of ever trying to do. And so we worked on it for a while, and we went out to kind of raise money, and one of the investors said, it'll never work because you use the word doctors and computers in the same sentence. I have an idea. Why don't you help me? So we helped this gentleman named Tom Blair, who is truly a serial entrepreneur, and really learned almost everything I know about being an entrepreneur from him in the early days. His idea was to take a bunch of health benefits above and beyond your health plan and charge $10 a month and use the Visa credit card holders as the insured population. So he asked us a question, which was, can you put the name Visa first on a credit card? And everyone, all the bankers he knew said no. And we said, of course you can. We did a lot of research, and Visa at the time was a marketing association, so we called it the Visa Health Extras card, and we launched this business. And we were going through the process, and there was a really interesting story where we're, months away from an IPO, basically pre-revenue, but planning an IPO. It was a crazy time. And he turns to us and says, "You guys are not entrepreneurs," to me and Jason. We said, what do you mean we're not entrepreneurs? He goes, "You don't worry about making the payroll. I do. Therefore, you're not an entrepreneur."
Wow.
So we did the only smart thing that young, dumb kids do is we quit the next morning.
I love it.
We said we want to be entrepreneurs. So we locked ourselves back in New York in a closet and tried to work on a business plan. And our office was so small that if I would lean back, I would hit Jason's chair. And if he leaned back, he'd hit my chair. And so we said, okay, I'm going to use the office on Mondays and Wednesdays. You use it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Friday we'll come in together.
So you've redefined office sharing before it was ever a concept. I love it.
Exactly. So the next day, Jason comes in. I'm like, dude, it's my day. What are you doing here? And he's like, I can't get internet access at my apartment. Why don't we wire apartment buildings like dorm rooms? So we did a whole bunch of research, wrote a whole business plan, and then realized that residential buildings are much harder to work in than commercial office buildings. And then when you sell a residential unit, you get one user. And when you sell an office building, the average small company is like 25 to 50 users. So you can make more money that way. So we wrote a whole new business plan for wiring office buildings like dorm rooms. We called the company eLink. We were 20-something years old. We raised over $100 million. We had 250 employees in 12 cities in 3 countries. This was truly the go-go days of the internet.
Oh, that's amazing.
Then April of 2001, the telecom bubble burst. June, we bought our biggest competitor for $6 million in a 363. They had just been scheduled to go public with $1 billion valuation and missed the window for IPO. So then in August, our board realized that they had 2 28-year-olds running their last surviving telecom business. So they kind of freaked out, and at 8 o'clock in the morning of 9/11, we got fired from the company we started.
Wow.
At 9 o'clock, our city blew up.
Yep. We all.
So we were overqualified for any job that we could get, underqualified for any job we wanted, and then totally freaked out on a personal level. So Jason went and got engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Chloe Epstein, or Chloe Feinberg at the time.
Right.
And we tried to figure out what to do next. And, we had raised a ton of money at eLink, and so we didn't want to do a job that required raising more capital. So we found a guy named Andy and Trotter who had a small venture fund backed by his wealthy cousin. And so he wanted us to run one of his portfolio companies. And so we went and looked at it and said, we like this, but we don't want to run this company based in Rockland, California. Let us work for you for free. If you like us, pay us a lot and make us partners. And if you don't like us, ask us to leave. So I ended up staying for over 10 years. Jason is still there today. And we basically built this into a large family office. At the time, it was 1/3 real estate, 1/3 private equity, 1/3 corporate credit. They've done a lot more private equity since then. I left in 2012, so after 10 years. And Jason, I said, is still there. And when I left, when I was there, I had a lot of different roles, everything from CFO, but I'm not an accountant, to general counsel, but I'm not a lawyer, investor relations, and doing deals. And I really miss being a true entrepreneur. And so I had this idea to take overripe bananas, peel them, freeze them, and put them in a blender.
I love it.
And so I spent the summer making it for all my friends, including Jason and Chloe. And Chloe is a mom. She has 3 kids. She's a former Manhattan DA. And she used to eat frozen yogurt thinking she was making a healthy decision. And then she realized that she read the ingredients. It wasn't such a good decision. So she'd been constantly searching for that better for you treat that was satisfying yet clean and delicious, something that she could feel confident to give her children. So she tried my banana, and she's like, this is incredible. It's just bananas. So at the end of the summer, I said, guys, let's do this. So the whole idea was a side hobby. This was 2009. So in 2010, we actually opened up our first store. And the whole idea was to have, 5 Champion juice machines and a bunch of bananas. Mm-hmm. And so we went to a restaurant consultant. She's like, it's got to be scalable. It has to come out of a froyo machine. So we went to Taylor's offices and we tried to figure out how to recreate this product in our frozen yogurt machine. And we had to change the settings. We had to add a little bit of water to get the banana puree through the machine. And then the water diluted the sugar content at what's called the Brix level, so we had to sweeten it. So we tried agave and stevia and it didn't work. So we added organic cane sugar and it worked beautifully. So we have a product that comes out of a froyo machine. It looks like froyo, but it's made of literally fruit, water, and organic cane sugar. That means, by definition, it's dairy-free, gluten-free, fat-free, vegan, kosher parv, free of all 8 major allergens, and non-GMO project verified, just like an actual banana.
Right.
So you could take every one of those like reasons to believe stickers and put them on a banana itself. So we didn't create a diet product. We just created a banana in a different form, which we have now dubbed the cool way to eat fruit. So then we launched our first store in 2010. In 2011, we opened up 2 more stores. And that summer, one of our chefs took some soft serve out of a froyo machine into a popsicle mold. We put it for sale on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And somebody walked in the first week from Asphalt Green Day Camp and tried the pops and says, "I want to buy 5,000 pops." We said, "What?" They said, "Our kids don't eat high fructose corn syrup and flavoring at home. Why should they have that at camp?" We said, "Absolutely." Except we had 2 molds and each mold had 6 pops.
That's great.
So we bought more molds. We hired more people. We figured it out. We delivered the first 750 pops to them. And they called us up the next Monday and said, "You're not going to believe this, but in the middle of the June heat, the kids ate the pops before it dripped down their arms. Why is that?" We said, "We have no idea." So we called our food scientist and asked him, and he says our pops is such a high fruit content, the fruit acts as a natural binder, plus we don't have any stabilizers like guar gum or carrageenan. So fast forward our story, in 2013 we did our first what I call pivot, where we realized that the franchise world was a little bit too challenging and the real estate prices were too hard to find good real estate, and we went into food service. And what that meant is if you have a froyo machine, take out your yogurt, put Chloe's in, it has to be branded and marketed as Chloe's, otherwise just sell the pops. And then in 2014, we launched our first grocery store pack. We put 4 pops in a box, sold them in Texas in 179 stores. We then expanded to 1,800 stores. Last year, 4,500 stores. And this year, we're going to be in over 10,000 grocery stores, including Safeway, Albertsons, Kroger, Fresh Direct, Fairway, Gourmet Garage, Hannaford, Target, Walmart, Harris Teeter, Price Chopper, the list goes on and on. But it's been a really exciting growth for us. And then to see the reaction from the consumers kind of as we continue to build the brand and grow the business. So, we have our retail store in Union Square on 17th and Broadway. We sell to food service. We're approved by Compass, Aramark, Sodexo, and Centerplate. We're in private schools, public schools, colleges, hospitals, on the patient trade, NYU, in the cafeteria at Sloan Kettering. We're in convention centers like the Orlando Convention Center. But our big push is groceries. And so for the first time, we're actually available in all 50 states. And so we're really focusing on marketing and building a brand, which is an awesome challenge.
First of all, congratulations on all the success. And this is it's an amazing story because I've heard it in different pieces of your career. And maybe most importantly, I happen to love Chloe's Fruit. I've been in your store by Union Square. I've had the pops. Actually, I'm a big fan of the dark chocolate one. And it's exactly as you described. I now understand what the kids at the summer camp are talking about because of its natural fruit piece. It's not like ice cream. It's going to drip down or any of those non-natural flavors. More importantly, it's delicious. It's like really, really good. So it's so great when you see someone that has a passion for something that's healthy and meets all those requirements. I joke about it. You probably are a label maker's dream with all of those, gluten-free, kosher, no GMOs, everything in there. Literally probably have more contents in the labels of what this thing isn't versus than what it actually is. Even more importantly, your story and your passion even comes out in your voice and how you're talking about this. And I just think about, you just went on a whole run talking about moving from the Greek magazine up at school all the way up to creating what is now Pops. And how many people are now working at Chloe's?
We have about a dozen people in the corporate office, and then our retail store fluctuates from about 10 in the winter to about 20, 25 in the summertime. And then we have a huge broker network that we access of several hundred people that help us sell into all the grocery stores around the country. country.
Well, that's great. I love hearing the entrepreneurial motion in you as you're going. My question, Michael, for you is, what are you most proud of in that whole run of all the things that you've done? Is it each one of those steps? Is it the end result, or what's yet to come? What gets you, like, when you wake up in the morning and you say, wow, I've done that. I can't believe what I'm doing. What's the thing that excites you the most?
Going to work and not feeling like I have a job.
I think I understand that statement. You've never really had a job. It's always been the entrepreneurial thing that you've done.
No, but there have been times when my job felt like a job. Mm-hmm. And at Chloe's right now, it never feels like a job. But there have been times through all of my past businesses where it's felt like a job. And I've never fully been in complete control. So at Chloe's, with Chloe and Jason, we're in complete control. And that's just a great feeling where we can really effect and affect our destiny and where we're going. And so every decision we make has an impact on our business, and we can feel it and see it.
That's great. What would you say is next for Chloe? And specifically, like, where do you want to take it to from this point? Because obviously it's growing organically and virally. What's the big dream for you and for the business?
We want to change the way people eat fruit. We want people to incorporate eating Chloe's in all aspects of their diet. And we want to be in everyone's freezer. So we want people to know that this is a brand started by a mom for a mom. Yeah. And so we're really trying to get that messaging out and, really just grow our distribution and our sales so that we're literally a national brand, so that when your listeners, oh yeah, I have Chloe's in my freezer. And so we're starting to get that in the New York area and really focusing on building that around the country. So we have an amazing marketing team led by Perfecto Sanchez and Chloe, and really putting Chloe out there as a key differentiator, the whole buy a mom for a mom story.
Yeah, you've embraced what I call the super why, and you've really, you're living and breathing it every day, which is powerful. Many people, when they look at a snapshot of an entrepreneur, if they read a news story or they see the success, they only see all the good things that come out, but they don't always get to focus on those bad stories or the dips or the problems that go through. What I like to describe this as, when you're having trouble thriving, who do you seek out to help get you back on track? Who is your sensei to get you back onto the thriving train?
So what I would say is I have two, call it life senseis, and I have senseis for different specific niches of business challenges. So I have a lot of mentors who are really good at X, Y, or Z, but there's two people directly in my business life that have a profound impact on me. And one is my partner, Todd, who's my CFO. He's also my first cousin and a sell-side investment banker. And the other is my partner, Jason, who's been my partner for, since 1994. And these two people have something very distinct that not everybody does with me, which is they're very willing to say no.
Yep.
And they will stop me and correct me and tell me that that is not the path, and they do not agree with my strategy, and will argue hard as to why it is. And, my whole career, I've worked with people who are much older than me and have much more experience in the business. So I've never actually started a business where I know anything about. If I know a lot about the business, I'll be able to convince myself why it's not a good idea. So I started businesses where I know a little bit about to be dangerous, but not too much. And so I always have to surround myself with people that really have that experience. And so when you talk to them, I always ask why. Why did you always do it that way? And if they say, because I always have, I don't accept that. If they explain to me why, then I either agree or disagree. So here's an example in our business. When we launched our Pops in grocery stores, my old-time ice cream veterans said the way you launch ice cream is you start with a high price, you then promote down to establish it, you then promote to a lower price, and then you can bring the price back up high. They said if you start low, you can never raise the price back up for consumers. And I challenged that theory, and I said, okay, I buy that for ice cream, but for Chloe's, we're trying to drive trial. And people look at our box and think we're just an ice pop. And so until they taste it, they won't see how delicious it is and that it's worth paying that extra money. So our strategy has actually been a little different, which is start low, drive trial as much as we can, and then bring the price back up once we have loyal customers. Because once they're buying it, then an extra dollar is not a big deal. But on trial, that extra dollar is quite a big deal.
I love that. What has been, I guess, the biggest challenge on the Chloe's part of your career, the toughest day or the biggest challenge that you've had to face leading this company to where it is right now?
I think it came in 2012. We had built out 3 stores, 2 in Manhattan, 1 in the Hamptons, and I had fully left Columbus Nova and was full time on Chloe's. And after 6 months of really being in the job versus just being almost an investor in the company, I realized that we had a challenge, and that the franchising strategy that we initially gone out with, that we had just raised $2.5 million for, was probably not the best idea. The real estate prices were too high. We couldn't find a bunch of real estate that was worth expanding to. The labor prices were high and going higher. The quality of the labor was low, and the challenge of managing all of these kind of hourly employees was really challenging. And so at that point, through lots of conversations with my senseis, as you put them, or mentors, we kind of came up with the idea of what I call pivoting the business. And we kind of knew that grocery stores was the ultimate play, but we kind of first stopped in food service because it was a natural pivot of how do you get more people to eat the product without the big investment in the physical site and the labor. So let's use other people's real estate locations, and let's use other people's labor, and we'll just add our product in. And our conclusion was that works so long as it's not white labeled. It must be branded and marketed as Chloe's. So now there's Sweet Frog frozen yogurt locations where you can buy in and buy Sweet Frog vanilla or Sweet Frog cake batter or Chloe's banana soft-serve fruit. And it's branded as Chloe's inside the Sweet Frog locations.
It's great. I got to tell you what gets me each time about it, because I know how good the quality of the fruit is, and for those who haven't tried it, please go do, and we'll give you information on how to go do that in the show notes as well. What I'm most impressed with about this is it's the time frame that you ran through. It was a very short period of time that you've made this very successful. I mean, the idea didn't take that long to go through, but a lot of the stuff, and specifically in the industry that you're in, there's a lot of challenges. It is, a lot of bureaucracy, cracking the door into getting into groceries, getting a brand out, dealing with health, all the health issues, and getting food put out there. It really is impressive, and you should be applauded, by the way, for the speed that you've done it, but also, more importantly, really keeping that why for the business so strong, approved by moms, and it really is great quality. And that's the stuff that people want to hear, and that you could feel it in the passion in the way you're talking, Michael, which is impressive, and a kudos to you. I always like to open this up in the show here for you to provide what's one takeaway you want our listeners to remember, either about you or piece of advice as an entrepreneur, or something specific about Chloe's.
Well, for Chloe's, please go to chloesfruit.com and look at our store locator and find a store near you so you can try the product. So that's my ultimate goal, is to get people to try it. From like a entrepreneurial, thriving connection point of view, what's really allowed me to build Chloe's the way we have, as fast as we have, was our ability to raise capital. And the ability to raise capital gave us the money to make right decisions to grow the business. And that ability truly came from my 20-year career and the relationships and true connections that I had made over those times. So our investor base are people that I have met from the E-Link days, from the Columbus Nova days, all the way back. And it's those connections that I've really invested in over the years that I've called on now to say, hey, support me with Chloe's. Here's the opportunity. And so, I really think it's a sum of all of that experience and all of those relationships. And to me, a relationship or a connection is what you get in, what you put out. So the more time you invest, the more kind of energy you invest in a relationship, the more you can get out of it. And so it's that investment of time and energy in the relationships over the 20 years that gave us access to the capital today to build the business as quickly as we have to get it to where it is. So for wherever people are in their journey, find people that are worth investing the time and energy to build those connections and invest the time and energy.
Michael, I couldn't agree more. You literally sing the song that I sing every single day, and the power of being a master connector. And that is great. So to make sure everyone heard this, obviously you can go to chloesfruit.com. I've got your Twitter handle as @chloesfruit. And obviously, there's the main stores in New York City at the Union Square location, and where else? There's also we still have the Hamptons, right? Is that store still?
No. The whole focus is on the grocery stores.
Perfect.
So, and the Hamptons were in King Cullen and other grocery stores out there, but it's all about popsicles and grocery stores. The Union Square is kind of the heartbeat of our brand. We do all of R&D, and it's the best brand experience. But the real focus is on the grocery store side. Definitely.
So, for all the listeners out there, you got to try it. It's just that good. And with that, Michael, I can't thank you enough for being on today. It was great to have you. It went faster than I could have ever imagined. And I hope you had a fun time. It was fun chatting with you here. We never actually did this.
Absolutely.
We got to do more of this, don't you think?
Absolutely. This is great. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Lou. And it's really cool what you're doing.
Oh, man, thank you very much. Well, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for joining us today. And obviously for everyone out there, until next week, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Thrive Loud, or find us on the web at thrivepartners.net.